Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be showing you how to install third row speakers on a 2021 Chevy Traverse. So let's go ahead and get started. So all Traverses actually have what looks like a spot for a speaker. My understanding is that pretty much none of them have it unless you upgraded to a specific model. So they just left this, what looks like is a speaker there, but there's nothing there. So I'm going to go ahead and install a speaker here and here. You can see I already have on this side, but I'm going to show you how to do it on the driver's side. If you want, see I have this part of the third row down, you could technically cut out a spot. There is room to cut a spot right here. If you want to cut it and place it right there, is an option if you want. I just wanted to place it back here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to pop off this piece here. You can get these nice little plastic pry bar tools. They're super useful. It's also super useful for placing the wire up and hiding it out of the way. If you want, there is a little, it's this little airbag. Where'd it go? Right there. Little airbag thing right there. If you take like a box cutter, you can pop it out here, and there's a little 7mm bolt in there to undo, and this whole thing will come off. Obviously it's still attached to the seat belt there. Really, if you're worried about breaking it off, you should undo that bolt. Otherwise you can just pop these pieces right here out from back here, and just pop it off, and it'll give you access to work back here. So I ended up just taking this plastic piece off. There isn't really, I don't have the best recommendations on how to install this. Yes, I know it's a magnet and I'm putting it against metal. Seems like mixed opinions on that online. These are $30 speakers. They're little 4-inch, super cheap. I'll include a link. But on the right side, there's actually some plastic tubing back here that you can't really screw into it. So I ended up just putting two. Honestly, you're just gonna have to jerry-rig it. This one I'm probably gonna place flat and at least put two here. You can see I dented in, and I'm gonna drill through and put some screws in. I don't really have the best recommendations, just however you can attach it right there. All right, so go ahead and pop that back on. Be sure to obviously pop this off. Be super careful when you do. Did it on this side accidentally. Tore a little bit there. Decided to come with it on this piece right here. So just be careful of that. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this. You can see it sticking out there. I'm going to go ahead and feed it up through here and basically shove it up into the headliner there, and then down into this piece here, all the way over, and then up through. There's some rubber up there for the door seal that I'm going to hide it under, all the way up to that column between the driver and this second row. So go ahead and feed it through there. Again, this little pry bar works really good in just shoving it up into spaces like that. So go ahead and feed it all the way over there. Don't cut the line yet, because you're going to need to feed even more. So I'm just feeding it all the way through here. Try to not twist it up. The door will still close just fine with it fed through there. I'm going to feed it all the way through to here. I'm going to take this panel off. Again, you just take a box cutter knife or something really thin, and then there's a 7mm bolt in there, and this whole top panel just pops right off. So go ahead and feed this all the way through, and then pop this panel off. So there really isn't a very good spot to tie this in. If you pop this panel back, you can see where because essentially I'm just tying it in to this speaker right here. You could run a wire all the way through and tie it in at that speaker. That's definitely a possibility. But then you're running wire through the door, and it's going to be moving with the door, which I didn't really like, although I do have heavier gauge wire than the stock wires. There isn't really room right here to tie in, so all the wiring comes through right here. So what I'm going to do, basically I'm going to pop this off the rest of the way. It's just held in by clips. You'll have to pop up this partially when you start pulling it, and take this piece out, and I'll show you where I tied in on the other side and it worked for me. So I don't necessarily like it, but this was the easiest spot to tie in right here. This is where all the wires from the door come. I'm probably gonna tie in right here or something on it. So what I did was I fed this wire through one of these holes here, probably this lower one, and actually we should check and make sure which hole that, yeah, you can feed through that lower one, because this has a pin right here that's going to go through this upper one. So I fed through this lower one just so it doesn't get all tangled up with the seat belt here. Feeding it all the way down, and then you can pop it out down here. This is essentially, it's essentially electrical tape. That's just soft on the outside, so you'll have to cut that back to expose the wires. So go ahead and measure out how much wire you're going to need, feed it down, and then cut it. Always give yourself a little bit more and you can remove any excess. So go ahead and do that next. So I cut back this tape to expose some wires, and your two radio wires that you're snipping into are these two green ones here. So obviously the green with the black line on it is your negative, and then just the plain green is your positive, so make sure that you wire that correctly. Obviously I did the negative as the black wire and positive as the red connected to the speaker. The easiest way to tell that these are your wires is, for some reason they decided to intertwine them like that. These other ones, they didn't intertwine any of them, but these ones they did. This one, there's surprisingly enough room for me to work here, where I'm going to use these splicers, so I really don't have to cut anything, and basically just hook it on and then hook this wire to it. You can get these at Ace or any AutoZone auto parts store or something. I can also include a link on everything that I used in this. I'll show you in just a sec the passenger side what I had to do. There was absolutely no room. These were twisted so tight, there was no separating them enough to get these splicers on like I'm going to be able to on this driver's side. So I'll show you that in a bit. Okay, so there you go. That is on there super clean. Doesn't take up a ton of space. I like that. I like that a lot better. I'll show you what I had to do on the other side. Again, I didn't like it, but it was the only way, because there was just no room. Those wires were twisted way too tight for me to work with them and put these splicers on. Also, it fed on the second row rather than up front on this first row, so I'll show you that right now. So this is the passenger side. I really could not figure out the wiring. I just didn't trust what I found online until I actually looked at the wires that come to the actual speaker, until I took everything apart and figured all this out. So I ended up, same thing, feeding it through all the way up top, feeding this wire down, and came down here, and they were twisted so tight that I had to cut them and then add extra wire so that I could tap in and use my red wire. So the two wires, I don't know if you could see them super well, it's like a greenish blue with black, and that's obviously the negative, and then it's like a white, but it's almost yellowed. I don't know if it's just because it's now a 4-year-old car or what, but it's almost yellowed, but it's labeled as white online. I already tested it and make sure it works, and it does. I don't really like that, having to add that extra length of wire, extra caps, but there was just no room to work there. There was no room to work in here where the wires come in. And again, I didn't really want to run it through the door. And I mean, you could feed it behind the speaker here, I just didn't want to do that. So I've already tested them and they work fantastic. Hopefully those in the third row, usually it's kids, will enjoy it now. That was the complaints I was getting, that they couldn't hear the radio. So now you'll actually have speakers where it looks like you should. So anyways, that's how you install third row speakers on a 2021 Chevy Traverse. Hopefully this was helpful, and thanks for watching.